From episode 1
to episode 100.
This week, on our 100th episode, we'll be reviewing Twisters, Maxxxine, Longlegs, maybe Deadpool and Wolverine, and the 9.5-hour documentary, Shoah. Yeah, that's a beefy episode.
This is The Film Angle. Welcome to The Film Angle, a podcast where we dive deep into the latest releases and unearth the classics to better our cinephilic curiosity.
I'm Alex.
I'm Kris.
Let's get into it. Episode 100, potentially after our longest break ever. It's been quite tricky trying to get this episode off the ground, hasn't it?
It has been. Why is that? I don't know. We suck.
Yeah, well, it was delayed. There were holidays. There was internet shortages.
Yeah.
It almost seemed like we were cursed to have just 99 episodes of The Film Angle, and that was it. At one point, I didn't know if we would ever get here.
Not on my watch, baby. Not on my watch.
No, we didn't want to let it happen. We'd feel so bad for Alfie as well if we got the new logo, all the new stuff going, and then we have like 3 or 4 episodes out with it, and then we're like, nah, we're done. But we're not done.
Yeah.
We're far from it. Far from
Imagine.
it. We'll never be done. We'll never be done. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, what have you been up to, Kris? You've been living your brat summer. What's going on?
My brat summer, yeah, that's a good record actually. But yeah, apart from that, I mean, like I'm getting there. I'm getting towards the brat summer, but not quite there. I might run out of summer by the time I get there. But yeah, no, just living my life. Still at university, still studying, getting all my final exams out the way. That's kind of also been a contributing factor as like not being able to watch as many movies. But I've got 2 months off now. I'm like relaxed. I'm kind of free. I've got my job still, my main job. I mean, I still have to give that some sort of attention, but apart from that, I'm relatively free as a bird. So yeah, I mean, hopefully we say it all the time. I think we should like every time we have a break, Alex, we don't come back and say we've had a break. We just pretend that nobody noticed.
Yeah,
maybe that'll work better for us, or else we're just constantly apologizing all the time.
I know. We try to be as consistent as possible with our one episode.
We really do try.
Schedule.
Yeah,
we do have the Green Man Festival coming up, so potentially there could be another break on the horizon. But I'm sure after that, our kind of holidays and studies and all that kind of stuff seem to quiet down a little bit, and hopefully we can just get out some episodes for you. And there's a lot of films coming out. There's been a lot of films that have come out, hence why this is going to be a little bit of a bumper episode. We decided not to make the whole episode a Q&A because we thought there's been so many films, we need to review them, and that ultimately is why we do the podcast, and I think that's ultimately why people listen to it. But instead of a trivia segment this week, we do have Q&A with some user submitted questions. So
Fun.
we will still be doing a Q&A, just a smaller one, so that we can review all the latest releases. We'll be talking Twisters, we're talking Maxxxine, Longlegs, and Shoah. But I also did want to say, I did watch Deadpool and Wolverine. Kris, I know you haven't, and I don't think you have any plans to soon. So if anybody is interested in what we think, you are only going to get my thoughts. I'll just give them to you now.
Sure. And I like to hope I'm not like against the whole thing. I am just a little bit like, I haven't seen Deadpool 2. I couldn't find the time to watch that and watch Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm not like super excited about it. Yeah, who knows? I might get around to it next couple of weeks. But yeah, tell me what you thought about it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to make you rush to the cinema to see it. I don't know if I've lost the Marvel in me or if Marvel have lost me. I don't know which way around it is. But then again, this is kind of adjacent.
Take the Marvel out of the boy.
Yeah, this is kind of adjacent to the MCU anyway, but kind of part of it now because of it's a very meta film about the inclusion of Deadpool into that world, or kind of not, and then also getting that team up with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. It is fun, I guess. It's fine-ish. I mean, for a film that probably is supposed to be more comedic than anything else, I don't think I laughed a lot at all. I maybe laughed once properly. At very kind of you can't even say things. So this whole film was based on shock value of like cameos and stuff like that. That if I was to tell you the joke, it comes out of somebody's mouth who you don't even know was in the film, kind of thing. So,
which seems to be being spoiled online already.
Oh my goodness,
for the majority. Yeah,
crazy how fast it gets spoiled online. Actually, and it was kind of a shame because I kind of knew all the cameos going in because it had been so heavily spoiled, even by like the director himself was, sharing footage from inside of cinemas, like user recorded footage from inside of cinemas, talking about it on Twitter and stuff like that. You're seeing like, dude, come on, it's been like 3 days.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like, maybe that's a smart decision because that was a lot of that sort of marketing of the film, if you will, was like very present when the last Tom Holland Spider-Man movie came out. Like everybody was posting like videos from screenings, and that kind of like helped propel it even more. But yeah, it's kind of.
But that was like people cheering. I don't know if anybody's cheering during this one. I don't know. It was cool. It was cool to see Wolverine in his costume, but like that's about it. The plot of the film is so paper thin. Like it's a fun, wacky ride, but at the same time, if you put too much thought into it, it just falls apart.
Yeah.
So I kind of left the cinema just like, okay, like I don't feel any kind of strong way between it. I know a few people have been saying about like how kind of like the feels are there, the emotional element to this kind of buddy cop film, but I didn't find that at all. I didn't connect with it on that way. Maybe I'm just starting to get jaded by the whole thing. We've spoken about it before in the past. But yeah, there you go. Deadpool and Wolverine. Wouldn't rush out to see it. Fine, whatever.
Oh man.
If you haven't been spoiled, then maybe some of the shock value of those kind of cameos will be will engage you better than it engaged me, who kind of knew what was going on going in. But spoiler culture these days, man, it's awful. You have to see a film within the first weekend if you like want to know what's going on. But I was in Copenhagen, just to name drop where I was. I was in Copenhagen, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm very jealous. I saw a lot of food pics that you sent over. But like you're right. Even when it's like a film, like we'll be talking about later, like Longlegs. I mean, kind of one of the things that the marketing on that film was sort of selling itself on was keeping the look of what Nicolas Cage looked like in that film until you've seen the film, and then like a day afterwards, like the film media itself, like the marketing team, were posting pictures of what he looks like in the film. I'm like, okay, well, it's completely gone now. So you have to, yeah, you're right. Whenever these big movies come out, you have to like be on it. Any other movie, like nobody cares about these days. But if it's Marvel, yeah, it's spoiled pretty much instantly. Yeah, I don't know, man. I watched the trailer for it and I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. Yeah, these are a lot of smug jokes, and I get that that's the shtick, but like you guys have really not like, you're not in everybody's good graces enough. I don't think like you haven't been knocking out enough good films recently that I feel like that smugness is justified. It just comes across as a bit crass. So that's kind of keeping me at arm's length of this movie a little bit. And it doesn't feel like a movie. I can't tell you what the movie was about from the plot, from the trailer.
Well, to be fair, I think they have kept quite a few things secret, which is why it's annoying that it gets spoiled within the first like few days, because they have tried so hard to keep so many things at bay.
Yeah.
That a lot of what you see in the trailers is kind of the first 30 minutes, mostly. So
I did hear that, yeah.
So that's good, I guess. But then if you don't take the extra care to make sure that it's not getting spoiled as soon as it comes out, then it doesn't really matter anyway, does it? But yeah, like you said, like the jokes, man, they're so bottom of the barrel, so low hanging fruit, so easy. Some of it I kind of wonder, because you and I have that kind of, when we joke about balls and all kinds of stuff. That sounded stupid. But,
the first thing you thought of, first and only thing, like you started your list off with balls and then couldn't continue. It was a full stop after that. Balls. yeah.
And that's kind of what the film is. But it did make me wonder whether that humor like doesn't translate from outside of the set. Like maybe when you're on set, you're like, haha, this is funny. And then it doesn't translate.
It does feel like that. It feels like a bunch of friends made a movie, but they got like $300 million to do it. Yeah.
And it does get meta about the multiverse. And it does, it's kind of weird hearing, a film that's obviously produced by Marvel being like, we've not been at our best recently. Ha ha ha. Like maybe we should like pack this multiverse thing in. But then ultimately we know multiverse ain't going anywhere. They just cast Robert Downey Jr. as Doctor Doom. So he's not going to, he's going to be from a different universe. So it's like the multiverse is still at play. I don't know. Again, it seems like
it gives me a headache just thinking about it. Like,
I never wanted to get to this stage, but yeah, it really is draining. But there you go. We don't have another one for a little while. So
okay.
And there's been other films coming out that are good, but then also not every film that we're talking about today has lit my world on fire. So let's go for it, shall we?
Oh, great! Looks like I won't be inspired to watch Deadpool and Wolverine anytime soon. But yeah, we do have some really interesting films to talk about today. I think we'll kick it off with Twisters because that was sort of like the big one we've seen recently. Yeah, I saw an IMAX with Laura, and it's flipping mind blowing. Actually, I thought it was really, really cool movie. It kind of me and you, we rewatched it, the original Twister film from '96 a month back, and I think we hadn't seen it. Have you seen it before? Was that the first time you watched it?
Yes. So watching with you and Lauren and Em was my first time. I'd been on the ride at Universal or something like 10 years ago, I guess.
Which doesn't exist anymore.
Years ago. Does it not? There you go.
Well, I went to Universal in 2019 and I didn't see a Twister ride there, but I must have been gone. But yeah, like we watched it. We all had a really fun time. I hadn't seen it since I was a kid, so I was pretty much like watching it for the first time, like a fresh watch. But it was so much fun. It reminded me like movies don't look like that anymore. Like they don't have that great 90s tongue-in-cheek, interplay between characters. Like I thought the Twister was going to be like the whole Jaws of the thing, where it was going to be like, oh, I can't wait to see these big, massive, weather phenomenon moments. But then it ends up being more fun about like all the characters on the road and how kind of cheesy and corny, and they're all like little different archetypes that kind of really mesh well together. And so when I went to see Twisters, it is that again, but like it does enough new little tweaks here and there where it doesn't feel like a redo. I actually would say that I actually think I prefer this than the original Twister movie. I thought this was really, really fun. Should we get into the plot?
Yes, get into the plot. Go on, get into it.
So, years after a tragedy while chasing a giant tornado, meteorologist Kate, who's played by Daisy Edgar-Jones, is lured back into the game after her old friend Javi, who's played by Anthony Ramos, gives her an offer she can't refuse. So this decision to get back into the field makes Kate cross paths with the cocky YouTube self-titled Tornado Wrangler, played by
Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell, of course. How could I forget the biggest star in the world right now?
You were blinded by just the vision of him that popped up in your mind. He's a dangerous man.
As soon as he smiles, I literally I had to stop myself because I could feel my cheeks getting red.
Yeah, I can see you blushing now. For our listeners, he's blushing
and smiling like a little schoolgirl. Honestly, this guy's a star. So it becomes a little bit of Kate trying to wrestle with the past, her past relationships with her mother, with the people she lost in the tragedy, and also getting back into what she loves the most, and also like all these different relationships along the way. It kind of writes itself. There's good guys, there's bad guys, there's innocent people, there's natural disaster. It's everything you kind of want from one of those old school big summer blockbusters, and it's something that something like Deadpool and Wolverine would be. I haven't seen it, but from what I gauge from you, I kind of have a good grasp on what that movie is, but sort of what those sort of movies are missing for me. And this film looks like it's shot. Is it shot on film? Twisters, like it had a grainy sort of filter on it. It looked really nice to look at, but it is directed by Lee Isaac Chung, who directed Minari.
Yeah, so it has really a little good film from like 2 years ago, I'd say. Did we review that on the podcast, or was that pre-podcast?
It was on like the threshold of when we started. I feel like, because we talk about movies all the time, just even off podcasts. So we obviously talk to each other about it. So that's probably why I can't remember quite. But you wouldn't you wouldn't know necessarily that this movie was directed by him if you just came in and watched it. But afterwards, like, and if you looked it up, I can kind of see why. This doesn't feel like something that they just got a director for hire, like, you know, and he just pointed the camera at the screen. There are flourishes here. And I think why he was such a good director to choose for this project is, you know, Minari was very much a film about family dynamics and relationships and individuals and how they all come together. And that's kind of the core of what this film's about, I suppose. It's about all these different, you know, microscopic characters and some of the bigger characters, how they all, you know, form on the chessboard and kind of create a fun little ride of a movie. So I think, yeah, you can tell it was his film in the end of the day. But I had so much fun. I think Daisy Edgar-Jones and Glenn Powell are just movie stars when they're on screen together. Like, they just have the chemistry. You know, it's cheesy. It's got all the contrivances galore you could ever expect from a movie like this. But it does them so well and just enough where I wasn't rolling my eyes once. I felt myself giggle and laugh at the obvious choices that were happening on screen. Like, I see what the movie's doing, and it caught me off sometimes. But I enjoyed the overindulgence of it.
Yeah, I agree. It was fun to just be kind of swept up in a film that didn't take itself too seriously. Was you know, it is kind of even though it's a sequel, it's kind of remaking elements of Twister, but with kind of like a modern day cast and
no former characters or like re-mentioned or anything. There's no one coming back to do a cameo. Or
I did wonder whether Daisy Edgar-Jones's mum was going to be a big, you know, was it going to be Helen Hunt or something like that at the end of the day? But yeah, unfortunately, many of the Twister cast we have lost, so which is a shame. So maybe it was just a case of don't bring back anyone. New slate. We're kind of remaking it anyway, but we're kind of not at the same time. But yeah, Lee Isaac Chung, he understood exactly what made the first one work, and then put it into kind of this modern day perspective, this more contemporary film. But also, yeah, it's just so much fun. Like you said, Glenn Powell he's incredible in it, and you know, I don't want to take away from Daisy Edgar-Jones at all because her performance is great as well. But he is the true star in this. Like, like every time he comes onto the screen, he comes on with a blasting country music from his truck at the same time.
He's
such a presence whenever he's there, and it's just great fun to watch it go. And I like the way it turns some of the kind of different like good guys, bad guy roles on its head a little bit. Daisy Edgar-Jones at the very start of the film was very much part of the more scientific crew, the more corporate crew, which you think is, you know, which you think are the good guys, and then the ragtag cowboys are just there doing it for YouTube views and stuff like that. Turns it on its head a little bit, turns it on its head again later on, in really fun ways, and it was just lots of great fun. I feel like I'm saying fun a lot, but that's kind of what it is, and that's kind of what you want from a blockbuster of this type. I'm not going in expecting you know, some kind of serious meditation on weather, psychology, the earth. It was interesting. I hadn't noticed it in the film, but you did bring it up the other day. That they don't mention global warming once, and that even though post seeing it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's kind of weird, isn't it? But like when you're watching it, it just feels natural that, you know, we're just talking about tornadoes here, you know what I mean? We want to stop a tornado. We have a scientific theory that we reckon might be able to help disperse one. And that might come in handy. So we got to drive and do that. I do think the original, I mean, I saw them in such quick succession. I do think the original has the edge of it being one, in that Mad Max way of it being like one big tornado chase. And I like how quickly it throws us into that whilst also knowing all the different character archetypes. This one is like multiple different tornadoes, like 2 or 3 maybe. So you get a few more downtime elements. So I don't think pacing wise, it's that kind of just fun joyride that the first one is. It does have a few slower moments, but it has a middle
that slows down.
But they're still good. Don't hate the slow moments. Like, you can't, like, you know, of course a film has to breathe sometimes, but I just think that first one just found the like a happy medium between the two in a way that just felt like I'm being whipped through a film, but I care at the same time. But I mean, this one kind of did the same. So I don't know. Maybe I'm finding criticisms. It was
it definitely does
great.
have those like downtime moments more. But yeah, you're right. Twister is more like, you're right. Mad Max is a good comparison, or like, Wacky Racers or anything like that. It's just like it throws you into the chase at the beginning, and it's all kind of, it's the first movie set in a day or something. It feels like it's like a day or two. It's like a very short period of time. So
very short. Yeah.
Yeah, so that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, it is, again, to use your word, a lot of fun. What I would say, I agree with you about the twisters in the first movie, obviously being a bit more like focused on the main event, and here it's a little bit more sporadic. But I do think that the advancements in technology have benefited the movie a little bit more here. I think like the special effects are really well done. What was really cool about seeing it in the IMAX screen was the sound, and I think they spent a lot of time focusing on making the tornadoes just sound scary. These moments where Kate is like ducking down, she's finding shelter and waiting for a tornado to go over her, and you just hear like the absolute roar of the epicenter of this monstrosity just go over her body or over wherever she's sheltering. That sound effect is really, it just shows you the power of nature. And I really do think that this movie takes the time to have a little bit more of appreciation for like weather in general. It feels like it's more interested in it than the first movie was. Like in a basic way still, but still, I think it pays more attention to the tornadoes this time. That's why I find anyway.
Yeah, I didn't have the same experience with the sound because here we go again. I'm going to do another cinema moan, but View Longwell Green, God damn it! I don't think your sound was fully set up properly.
It was the first thing you told me whenever you came out was that I could tell the sound was good, but it just wasn't in my screen.
Yeah, like I wanted it to like boom a bit, and it just didn't boom. I think it was coming more from the left than the right. I don't know. I'm not a sound guy, but
so annoying when that happens.
When you can just tell that it's just not completely there. And I've been to a few, like it's not just View. Like I feel like Showcase and Ava Meads when we did Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I don't know if we moaned on the podcast about it then, but when we saw it, that sound wasn't completely set up right either.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it wasn't that. I think it was more an issue for you. You told me afterwards, and I kind of thought, oh yeah, but yeah, I've had worse experiences than that. Like I saw The Fall Guy earlier this year, and I was not enjoying that film anyway. But I actually was so in my head when I watched it because the volume was so low. Like I could barely understand what they were saying. I was like, is the movie bad? Or is it just I can't hear what's going on? I'm not engaging. And I was like, oh, that was just the worst experience. So yeah, it can really take you out of a movie. But to hear that like Twister still worked for you and was still a really good rip-roaring ride, contrasting with your experience with the sound, just tells you that the movie was good. So that's good to hear.
Yeah, there we go. Moaning about the cinema again. This is the only problem. I want to see as many films in the cinema as I can, but they keep letting me down a little bit as well. You know what I mean?
It is annoying because you kind of think like, you wish that the staff would have just a little bit, not moaning about cinema staff because, it's a great job that they do and everything, and they don't get paid enough in my opinion. But, it's just a little bit more due diligence and like that sort of stuff would be cool. Like, just check the sign, every so often, some of us do care.
Having worked in a cinema, like there are certain checks which are carried out. I wasn't in that element of that, the actual going into the
is it scheduled? They just do it on a whim, or is it scheduled in when they have to do it?
I can't fully remember, but I know like there's nobody behind the projector anymore. Like it's very much like the films are scheduled in for a certain time, and you just kind of like let them play, and they do their thing. So there's less, I guess, people behind the scenes when the film's playing.
Yeah.
So if nobody's checked on that screen in a while, then how are you to know unless somebody comes out and tells you? But because we're also very British.
You don't want to miss the movie as well.
You don't want to miss the movie, and also you just kind of put up with it. You don't say anything afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, it is so true. Oh, the amount
You
of
come
times I
home and
get,
you moan into your podcast instead.
yeah, exactly, yelling into my podcast. Like, it's so true. Like, even when people are like, even if someone is like yelling at my screen or just acting like just crazy or just not being respectful on their phone, like, I will huff and I'll puff, but like, and I'll blow your house. Yeah, I sound like a fucking nursery rhyme there. But I'll never get to the point where I actually stand up and shout anything or tell them to
No, but
because
there's too many stories of
there's
like
too many
people ask.
variables there, isn't there?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Somebody's asked somebody to turn their phone off, and then they get quite threatening, and you're just like, well, that would ruin the film anyway.
there's a 60% chance they just like don't say anything back and maybe comply, and then I just don't want to wrestle with that other 40% chance.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway.
Yeah, we've gone off the Twisters thing. As you can tell, we are both fans of
Big fan.
Twisters. So if it's still playing, so and it's doing quite well. Don't go see Deadpool and Wolverine if you're like, oh, I'm gonna see something. Go see Twisters.
Yeah, it's pure escapist cinema at its best. So yeah, definitely go see it.
Not gonna change the world, but it's a fun time.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think most people will think it's good. I think that's probably most reactions will be like that.
and it was good.
Yeah.
It was good. So the next film we are going to be reviewing is Maxxxine, which is the third installment of Ty West's X trilogy. This one, we follow Maxxxine again from the first film, as she's now trying to make it in Hollywood, but a dark figure stalks the depths of La La Land, killing those around her and threatening to unveil her bloody past.
Yeah, the Night Stalker, as the trailers had me to believe at the beginning, and I was really confused by that because we all know about the Night Stalker, like the famous serial killer that was in the LA region, and I didn't
know whether we were going to get like an alternate Hollywood history kind of thing going on.
I know
with the Night Stalker or not, but no, we didn't really. But I mean, before we get into this film, I think we've spoken about X and Pearl in our 100 episodes.
Yep.
I think we've done both. But just to kind of recap for people who maybe haven't listened to those episodes in the past, what is your feelings on the trilogy prior to its third film?
Very excited for Maxxxine because I was a really big fan of both X and Pearl. They are sort of surface pleasure films, but they're complete love letters to their sort of time periods of cinema that they're focused on. X is sort of a focus on, 70s, sexploitation sort of cinema or horror adjacents like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then Pearl is more a complete throwback into the Hollywood Technicolor musical era, and but all throw in a really grungy sort of bloody horror turn. Throw in a bit of a Hitchcock energy into that film. So I was really excited about this. Obviously, we're also big fans of the Video Nasty era. That hardcore 80s aesthetic.
And it's an interesting time within Hollywood. Like, it is aesthetically quite a kind of iconic look for Hollywood in that period. So like that obviously plays well on film as well.
Exactly. And I thought that, considering how much attention to detail that Ty West put into the last two projects, I thought this guy's going to run away with this theme, like nothing. It'll be like a duck to water. So I'm going to say my initial impression of Maxxxine is a little bit of disappointment because, for me, this trilogy has all been about that, as I said, that surface pleasure, that enjoyment of the aesthetic, and then anything else that kind of comes along with that, the shocks, the surprises, and obviously the Mia Goth performance in all three of those films. So I felt like the first 20 minutes of Maxxxine, hell yeah, like this guy's got it down. We're on that same sort of level. We're really throwing ourselves into the theme of this era. And then it kind of just becomes a little bit of a meandering normal movie which is similar to a lot of horror films that I've seen in the last 2 years. And to the point I just wasn't as pulled into the world or as intrigued or as shocked. I thought this was actually kind of the most sort of less shocking of the three films. I thought he would kind of give us a little bit of a crescendo, but this was a little bit less provocative than both of those films, I'd say.
Yeah, makes you wonder, because this is the one with the highest budget. Makes you wonder if there was that more money, more people involved in
I think,
terms
yeah,
of.
both of those first films benefit from being set in just like the rural farm ranch setting, you know.
Yeah, and they were filmed like back to back during COVID, so I don't think Pearl was originally like a fully developed thing, and it was very much like, we're stuck here, we have this set, we might as well just like film the prequel now, kind of thing. And so there's an element of like that on the fly filmmaking really works for that film and for X itself. Obviously, this has had a lot more thought behind it. But I mean, I don't think I was as kind of like down on the majority of the film as maybe you were. Like, I didn't find it meandering. I did enjoy the different elements. It definitely nailed the kind of vibe I wanted it to nail. The horror elements, there's not really as many this time. There's a few cool moments. I particularly like the bit where she's getting prosthetic kind of mold on her face.
Yeah.
And she's trapped on the chair, and she's wondering if the killer is there at that moment. And she starts essentially having a panic attack, which is kind of a very kind of claustrophobic moment, which is great. And there are little flourishes of that which work. Mia Goth's obviously great again. She's really good as Maxxine. I really liked Kevin Bacon comes in, and he plays a kind of like Chinatown-esque private eye detective, very sleazy, very caricature-y. But his caricature kind of worked for me, whereas some of the police officer caricatures just didn't so much this time.
Yeah.
Bobby Cannavale, that's him. Bobby Cannavale, isn't it?
Yeah, well, he's in everything. He is in everything.
He's great. But in this, I don't think he gets a very kind of well-rounded character to play here. And
yeah, I think both him and Michelle Monaghan just don't get, like, they're too big of character actors or stars to be so small in this movie. I thought it was very jarring every time I saw them. They're like, these are just like minuscule cops in this story that have little to no character. And it's like, these are two really great actors you got here, and they're just like, it just feels like it's odd.
And they don't feel real. Like, there's nothing about them. Like, they feel like fake policemen. But I didn't know whether that was the film trying to say something about Hollywood. You know, because they are, at least Bobby Cannavale says, like, I wanted to be an actor, but it didn't work out. So here I am. I'm a cop now. So, like, I didn't know if it was trying to say something about kind of the fakeness of the whole city or not. But it'd
be an odd time for Ty West to be subtle, you know, because he hasn't been up until that point. So I guess it's hard to look for things like that.
Yeah, and I think where the film lost me, because for the most part I was vibing with it, but it really did lose me in that final like 20-30 minutes. Spoilers, we find out that the kind of stalker that's been killing all her friends for seemingly no apparent reason is Maxine's father, who's also part of this. You know, he's also a preacher, and he's brought together this weird kind of cult within Hollywood itself. And there's like a big shootout up in a LA mansion and stuff. And do you know what it reminded me of?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
It reminded me of Grand Theft Auto. It reminded me of a side quest you might do on GTA.
Yeah.
And it was so over the top with little to no, subtlety at all. And it just ends in a shootout. Like, that's not how I saw these films ending, was a shootout. But there you go. With unlimited ammo and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, the obligatory rock star cult side quest. It definitely felt like that. I think the problem that might have worked for the super hardcore X trilogy fan who has gone back and watched those movies umpteen times, but I think because that plot point in the first film X, with the father being revealed, or her being revealed as the daughter of the pastor that's on the TV, is more of like, that feels, it's not an Easter egg in that film, but it's such a minor little wink at the end of that film, where it's not like something that we've carried with ourselves over all the way to this third film and thought about and had in the back of our minds. It was more just like, oh, that's funny, and then just kind of filed that away.
I kind of forgot about it, yeah.
Absolutely. So when the reveal happens, you're like, oh, that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah. I like, and did they show his face in X? Because when he was revealed, I was like, I don't know who this is.
I think they just show like some black and white television CRT screen footage that's really distorted of a guy who's a pastor. So I don't think you could really tell if you wanted to. Like you wouldn't have carried that image over 2 years. Let's put it that way. Like
No,
nobody would.
because it was just her reaction where I was like, oh, I guess he is her father then. Like I was like, okay, I don't know who this is. This is not super interesting. And I don't know what the whole point was in killing the people around her, especially the guy in the video store. I was just like, I don't know what you're achieving by killing these people.
Yeah, I was a bit disappointed in that because I was actually looking forward to the possibilities of that character and just seeing like that dynamic. I haven't really seen Maxxine have a dynamic with another regular human being like that so far. He seems to actually quite like her in return and isn't just pitying her. And the same with Pearl. You know, Pearl's acquaintances, she had normal acquaintances, but they were all sort of out of pity for her. But so it was kind of disappointing that relationship kind of just ended before it blossomed for me. And I think that's kind of true for all Maxine's relationships in this film.
Yeah,
nobody really gets.
Sorry,
nobody gets to blossom in time.
No, you get introduced to them, and then the next scene they're dead.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, even like Lily James's character, who's doing a very strange accent, like a mix between
not Lily James, isn't it? It's Lily Collins.
Lily Collins, that's it, with her kind of mix of like a posh accent and a
which was like
accent. It was very jarring.
yeah, I've got one deaf ear. If anybody listening doesn't know, I do. I have one good ear, and whenever she started doing that accent, my good ear did turn to the screen, just trying to like decipher what she was doing.
Wait a second, what is happening right now?
I know this is an alternate reality, but come on.
Yeah.
Like I think you liked it a little bit more than me. I
don't want to discredit the film because I was like for 85% of it really vibing with it, and I was like, I'd heard some of the negative stuff going in, and I was like, when does this get bad? Like, this isn't bad. But then it does get bad. Like it shoots itself in the foot, and you're just like, oh, I've never seen a film just like jump off a cliff in quality quite so badly in a little while.
Yeah. Oh, I think it just kind of goes gun blazing a little bit too early. It's like the first 20 minutes is like style, Maxxine at her, it's the character we know from the last film, but also, we have that moment obviously with the guy dressed as Buster Keaton trying to obviously sexually assault her in an alleyway, and then she ends up like stamping on his balls with a stiletto. Like to me, I know that seems a little bit cheap, but that's like, yes, that's the stuff that we should be getting in this film a bit more of, because that's what we're nodding to, and this is the stuff that you've set a precedent for in your last two films. So yeah, I would have liked a little bit more of that sustained throughout it. Give me the video nasty stuff that I came here to see. But again, he did his own thing, and I appreciate that. It's not me to tell you what to do with your film, but I for me, and when Lauren saw it with me too, we're both big fans of the last two, and just didn't quite hit that level that those other two films had for us.
No, I agree.
Shame. It was nearly perfect trilogy. Well, not perfect. I mean, nothing's perfect, but like, in terms of what it's trying to do,
a good solid trilogy. But like many trilogies, there's always one, isn't there?
There's always one. Godfather Part 3 just couldn't get it right either.
Yeah, always one.
And then there's another horror film, Alex. Described as the scariest film ever made, Longlegs follows FBI agent Lee Harker as she is brought in to help in on an unsolved serial killer case that spans decades and may just be more personal than she can imagine. So there was a hell of a good marketing job done for this film. Like really old school. There was a fake website made for this film that kind of had this late 90s early Windows vibe, where I had the old hotkey look to old hyperlinks, and it was like every week until the release of the film, we're going to release new forensic photos of Longlegs, the serial killer of this film, his latest kill, and it was quite cool to tune into that website every week and have a little look at that. in the cinema in Cineworld, I picked up a business card that had nothing on it and just had a phone number on it. And I showed you a picture of it too. And if you rang the phone number, you'd have Nicolas Cage on the other end of the phone, breathing heavy and, calling you his darling and everything. And then he can't wait to see you on your birthday and all that sort of stuff. Really, really creepy whenever you're driving home at 10 o'clock at night. So yeah, really, really cool. I mean, so for me, that really, like, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, there's something interesting about this film. Reviews came out really early. Everybody was sort of raving about this thing. So yeah, expectations were high coming into Longlegs.
Yeah, absolutely. It was deemed the scariest film ever made, though I feel like there's usually at least one horror film per year that gets that mantle these days. But yeah,
I never was hoping for that. I never thought that was going to happen.
No, and yeah, it was a good campaign. You can't deny it. It got butts in seats. We saw it on opening night. We were excited for it in a way that we hadn't been excited for a horror film in a while. Yeah. And the cinema was absolutely packed. Like
it was probably full house. Yeah,
I think it was full house, wasn't it? Which kind of unnerved me a little bit because you know how I like to moan about cinemas, but usually sometimes with horror films it attracts the wrong kind of people who either like laugh or talk throughout it and you're just like, shut up. But thankfully everybody was there for the same reason. They wanted to be scared. But I don't think it was the scariest film ever made. It is quite unsettling in places, but the marketing campaign kind of overblows it a little bit, so that detracted a little bit. I was like, oh, when does this get scary? But it is an interesting film that deals with a kind of lot of satanic cult stuff going on. There's a lot more magicalness.
There's a little bit of that going on. Like it's not fully linked into, but there is.
So Lee Harker, our detective, she has this kind of foresight to see or like to feel when things aren't right. So she has this. It's almost like a Stephen King element to the main character, where that's they have some kind of supernatural power to them. But this one is very dialed down to the point where you're like, is it real? Is it not? You're not 100% sure. And she's brought in onto the Longlegs case, a serial killer case that's been going on for years and years, to see if she can use this kind of, this second sight that she's got to maybe help piece some things together. Turns out she's kind of a central figure in it all without knowing at all. And then, has to kind of confront Longlegs, played by Nicolas Cage, and find out some stuff about her own past, which kind of turns the villain of the piece on its head a little bit. It's not just Nicolas Cage, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, spoiler.
it's also Satan. And I think, man, I don't want to say I was let down by this film, but there was an element of coming out of the cinema. I was like, I don't know if I loved this. I think it was fine. It looks great. It sounds great. Like, you can't deny any of that. And it's going for something different, I guess, with the satanic stuff. But then again, Satan has been kind of looked at a lot in many horror films. But like, it felt new in a way. But I think when you're bigging up the detective serial killer element of it all, for it not to actually be solvable, because it, like, you wouldn't be able to guess how these killings were done, because it does have that magical element. It's kind of like, oh, well, there was no point me trying to piece it together because I was never going to get the answer anyway. And there was an element of that disappointed me. Like, I like films that are kind of at least grounded in some form of reality.
Because then, like, once they make that decision, you're like, oh, well, I might as well just sit back here because anything can happen.
Yeah. If the devil's real and he's doing this stuff, then
then we're all doomed.
who knows what else he can do? It's really creepy, though. Like, it definitely is creepy. Nicolas Cage is an interesting cast because you know what Nicolas Cage looks like and what he sounds like. So there's not really, like, obviously there's a bit of prosthetic work on him, but there's not quite a lot of prosthetic work on him, but he still looks like Nicolas Cage, and he looks like Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, he does. But he does also look like a blow up doll that got stung by a bee.
Yeah, it made me wonder what would have happened if they cast an unknown. But then again, the film might not have gotten made if they cast an unknown.
But it's his production company, isn't it? That kind of financed a lot of it. Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to know the choice behind that and revealing him. Yeah, I'm just intrigued. I'm intrigued by the whole thing. It's interesting, but like it just didn't grab me. It didn't scare me enough.
Yeah, you're right.
It didn't interest me enough.
Do you think, and this is how I felt about the film, I think if it did that thing where it did a bit more of a Fincher sort of, or, like a Gillian Flynn sort of like writing, where it was a bit more self-serious, kind of took the whole cat and mouse game seriously, where it was like, right, okay, we are solving the and it is just this one killer, it is just Nicolas Cage, and we're trying to track him down. Do you think, and the supernatural elements were just gone completely, I think the film would have been a lot more successful, because it has this sort of, the movie looks great. I mean, the first 20 minutes when you don't know you're in for a supernatural film, it's like, okay, this is working, this is quite intense. It's this beautiful widescreen, like fisheye lens always going on here whenever we get these POVs of looking at Micah Monroe, he plays, who
plays Lee Harker.
The detective, whenever we're following her through a house where she's just alone with a pistol, discovering like the corpses of some old bodies or something, or something horrific. Those bits are really, really intense. But whenever the supernatural element comes in, it just is a little bit deflating, because you got a film that looks aesthetically really refined and really sort of postmodern, but really old school Hollywood at the same time. And then you throw in some schlocky, almost elements that would kind of belong in more of a B movie. These two themes, these two types of films are fighting against each other, to the point where the last 20 minutes, all hell breaks loose, and the plot goes up the wall, and you're either with it or you're not. I was sort of somewhere in the middle. I was interested, but I felt everything just felt a little bit off.
Yeah,
and I think that's it.
It doesn't help that your main character, and I realize this is very much a creative choice, and I don't think it reflects badly on Micah Monroe, because I think she was given a character with certain like character elements that she needed to portray. But like because the character's so one note,
very closed off,
very quiet. You don't, very submissive in a way, if that's the right word. I don't know, but like she's difficult to connect to. You can't emotionally connect with her. So like there was another element of like I'm not feeling anything for this character when she's finding out horrific things about herself and her own past. And you're just like, I wanted to feel more maybe in those elements, and that would maybe scare you if you cared more about the main character. I don't know.
They kind of tease that they can almost do something with that character to make it work early on in the film, whenever she has an interaction with the police chief's daughter in a bedroom, where it weaponizes her close-offness, mixed with the perspective of a child. The child kind of looks at her, and they're both in the bedroom, and she kind of thinks, this girl's a little bit weird, this adult, and it kind of was played for laughs, and it does come across quite funny, that little moment. But then we're just with her the rest of the movie, and we don't get much more interaction about who she is other than trauma, really.
Yeah.
And it's understandable, but then it just becomes this person, he's a vessel that we're just following through. The movie just does fall apart. I really, really did. I love Nicolas Cage. I think he's incredible. I do think he's a little bit much for me here. I did find myself wanting to chuckle at certain choices that he made, and I really was fighting it. Like, I was fighting it within myself. I wanted to take this guy as seriously as possible, but my literally the chemistry, my genetic makeup in my body wanted me to kind of respond to this performance as a little bit silly.
I think that's it. I think that's Nicolas Cage's presence. This is why I'm like so intrigued by his casting, because there is an element of like, he dials it up. You know what he's good at, and sometimes it works. Like in Mandy, really, really worked for me.
Yeah.
But here,
I think the less Nicolas Cage you've seen in your life, the better. Probably off you'll be.
Yeah.
For this, it might work more for you, but like if you're thinking of just like if you're thinking about even his movie like the unbearable weight of massive talent. Even just like the meme of Nicolas Cage, and anytime you just look at his face, I can't help but smile a little bit. That's just a little bit of me, maybe, perhaps, but I think some people felt the same, because we were in the bathroom afterwards, and I heard some guys in the bathroom kind of laughing about his performance a little bit too. So,
there is a moment where he's like screaming in the car that I giggled at,
which is funny because that's the one bit that worked for me.
Yeah, well, see, I was like,
that's something like a guy like that. He's a complete crazy.
It was unnerving, but it was also like, oh, I've seen Nicolas Cage do this before. He's good at doing this. It is funny when he does this.
The scream did sound like the scream from Kick-Ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
It did.
It's tricky, isn't it? It's tricky.
It is tricky. Yeah. So, like, a lot of people really like this film, but it's not what it's being sold to you as is the greatest horror film of the last 20 years. It's not that. It's good. It's got merit. We had high hopes because it's directed by Osgood Perkins, the son of legendary Anthony Perkins and everything, and whenever it's a film like this is getting such praise, especially when somebody's directing it, he comes from a lineage in horror such as that, that's quite, that's exciting. And we were already excited, and we did try to come in with a level head, but still, I feel like we both came out a little bit flat.
And I don't want to say it's because of the marketing, because obviously so many horror films are marketed in a way that doesn't always, especially more art house horror films are marketed in a way that makes you think they're one thing, and then when you go to see it, they're not. And that's never been a problem in the past, but like the final result of the film also just wasn't vibing with me. So. This is
a rare case of see it for yourself and just kind of see where you land on it, because I really do think this is a very, very subjective film.
Don't bring baggage into the cinema.
Don't bring baggage, yeah.
Or I guess probably have to watch it VOD now, I imagine. It's probably out of the cinema by now. I don't know.
I think it's still playing some screens from what I've seen this week. But by the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be on its last legs. Not its long, Terrible.
Hey.
Yeah, terrible. Yeah, I cringed as soon as I let
out the last. You couldn't even finish it.
Okay, we'll end it on that.
All right, so our Q&A, because it is our 100th episode. Did you think we'd ever get here, Chris? I always hoped we would, I guess.
I mean, you don't start a podcast hoping that it's going to cancel next week, No. I don't try to naively go into things half-heartedly, as though it might appear actually when people listen to the podcast that I do, but I promise you I don't. No, it is really exciting, and it's just like it's a testament to how much you and I love films, how much we love talking about movies, and long live 100 more.
Yeah, we never started this with an end goal in mind. I don't want the podcast to end. If anything, we just keep growing it and making it better. Which I think we've done within the first 100 episodes already. We're on our second logo. I think it's our best logo. And
100%.
Yep, new music, all that kind of stuff. So I think we're getting better and better, and I'm starting to learn how to better edit a podcast now and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's starting to sound better, hopefully, as well. And how we do our marketing for the podcast, I think, is hopefully getting better. So, yeah. We just need to stop having breaks, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe in another 100 episodes' time, we'll have completely got the formula right.
Yeah, we have only had one guest this whole time, and we need to get more people on. I think it'd be fun to get more people on.
Yeah,
because it was fun having Alfie on, and we did. Obviously, we went on the Cineboys podcast, so we need to make sure that they come back to us at some point. We just need to put our heads together and figure it out.
All right.
I know you keep saying you don't want to see them. I know.
It's just not that. It's just like, we'll talk about it after the show. I don't want to badmouth people right now. Okay.
Oh.
we have a past. No. I love those guys. I hope they come on the show really, really soon. We just need to invite them. It's less that they can't do it. It's just we need to pull our finger out and not be such shy boys. And we're just so used to talking to each other. But the bird's got to leave the nest sometime.
Yeah. Well, they both Ben and Danny did leave us a couple of questions. So I've got a few
Okay.
questions, some submitted, and just kind of get a better idea of the film angle 100 episodes in. Shall we start the Q&A, Chris?
Great. I haven't seen these yet.
Cool. Wicked. All right. So, the first question. What inspired each of you to start a film review podcast, and how did you come up with the name The Film Angle?
Okay. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I don't mind. Pitching.
I can't really. I really just think the title thing was simply what we thought sounded good. I know that sounds so basic, but like I'm not going to give you some amazing backstory as why it's our perspective, right? But apart from that, what inspired me to do the show with Alex? Well, I was missing Alex. You know, we don't live 2 minutes down, you know, the door from each other. We live 2.5 hours away from each other. So this is a really good chance for me to catch up with my friend who knows more about movies than any other friend I have, and and a way for me to keep up engaging with movies on a common basis. Where, you know, I would have these slumps often, or I would have 2 months where I didn't watch a movie because I just burned myself out. But to have a structure like this that keeps me on top of everything, keeps me engaged, makes me love and appreciate cinema even more. So yeah.
It's like nice to have somebody to talk to when you watch films. And I think for me, it was definitely like I needed an outlet. You know, I studied film. I wanted to get into the film industry for a while, and that didn't really work out. So it was kind of like it was an outlet to use some of that creative juice that I have and love for films. And I think the title kind of, again, it was a lot of back and forth to find out like different titles and then figure out if somebody else, because there's a lot of film podcasts out there, see if somebody else had that title.
That's the thing too. You have to research other people's names. Yeah,
because you don't want the same name as somebody else if you can help it. So you know, if you're going to get nerdy, it's for like SEO and all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was how we came up with a bunch of different names. But I think also we don't really have like a niche, and I think we're developing that as we go. Like we just like talking about films. We're not like specific films of the 1920s or anything like that. And there are some podcasts who are really, really good at that, just delving into their niche.
Why is that, do you think? I can sort of answer that in a way. I feel like I never went for the niche thing because I felt that searching for a niche was just searching for a niche for the sake of it, and really not what I wanted to do. I really just wanted to talk about, you know, a vast umbrella of things. I think you probably felt the same.
Yeah, and I didn't want to kind of like limit ourselves. And if we did have a niche, I don't think I would have figured out what that was to be, and then like kind of be like, that's the podcast, that's what I'm doing now for X amount of time.
Yeah, because then you commit to it, don't you? I mean, people do change what their podcast is about. It does happen, but yeah, I think we just wanted to settle on something pretty quickly that we knew that we could stick to, we can manage, we can both see the movies in time. You know, it was manageable for us.
And and instead of like making the whole podcast a niche, we have niches within the podcast. So obviously we do film reviews and we review some of the main kind of releases coming out.
That's
but
true.
Then we, you know, I think it was a year in and we developed our greatest, the Sight and Sound greatest films of all time list and hitting the blind spots on that. So I've loved delving into that list, has been great. And we have plans to do the Ghibli angle and go through some of the Studio Ghibli films, just because that's an area that I've lacked in and that you have a lot more kind of ideas and thoughts about. So I like having different features within the podcast, so that works. Anyway, we've answered multiple.
Yes.
We've gone off. All right. Looking back on your first episode, how do you feel your podcasting skills and style have evolved over 100 episodes? I think it's about finding, there's like, we obviously have a chemistry outside of the podcast, but I think especially because we don't do it in the same room, it was almost like finding that chemistry whilst recording and
it was difficult. Yeah.
So I haven't listened to the first episode in a long time. I remember being pretty happy with it at the time. I imagine we're not as like free flowing. Maybe I think we're a little bit more free flowing. We do structure ourselves a little bit, but I think maybe then we might have been a bit more stunted. I don't know.
Yeah, it's funny because we were going for more a free flowing type of podcast to begin with. We wanted it to be a bit more chatty. Like we were having we were having drinks while we were recording, and
Yeah.
now I sit with a pot of coffee with every episode. It unfogs the mind a little bit more. I can think of an actor's name a little bit better, although I kind of failed a couple of times with this week's episode. But yeah, I think it's fun for me because every week I'm like, right, I'll just try. I know I did that again last week, bad. I just try to tweak that a little bit. Okay, I conquered that. If I can conquer that one thing, that's cool. And then it's like the format and also performing on the podcast. It's just these little tweaks. And if you notice after 25 episodes, each 25 episodes, that you've done something a little bit better, the episode quality sounds better, like it has done and everything.
Yeah.
I think, that's really cool. And, by the time you get to a certain point, you're like, okay, I can see the gap between episode 1 and whatever X number that is. So that's really cool for me. So, but yeah, I think we were both very self-critical. We were both so worried about like putting ourselves out there at the beginning, because it is a lot, isn't it? Going on the podcast and talking about the thing you like, and people might like it, people might hate it. So it was overcoming that barrier first, and then realizing it doesn't matter. Just
I think editing wise, that as well. We were very cutting all the
5
and
hours
ahs.
editing,
and I still cut some ums and ahs because I do love to but I just did one then.
I think when you listen to more podcasts, you realize people do it all the time, and when I listen to other people, I don't think about it.
It's how people talk, and I think our editing now process has very much been almost put it on in the background. Yes. And listen to it as a podcast. And
if anything sounds weird,
anything sounds weird, cut it out. Yeah. So like, I like that. Our editing style has definitely changed, I think. And then obviously we have a lot more production, I would say, ever since Alfie provided us with some great music and stuff to kind of cut it up a little bit, keep people engaged, I hope. So yeah, there you go. Have there been any episodes or reviews that you wish you could revisit or change your opinions on now that you've had more time to reflect?
Yeah, I actually would. I was thinking about this the other day. Nothing to do with the quality of the episode, but I would actually quite like to go back to one of our popular episodes, which was our top 5 comfort films. I think it was top 5, not 10. I think there's 1 or 2 films I would just change. I would swap for some ones that have kind of replaced those. But that's kind of the nature of lists. You change, you develop for the years and what your tastes are. And even in the last year, there's 1 or 2 of those a bit like, yeah, maybe that wasn't completely reflective. I would change that. So maybe just that.
I think I remember being quite, like lukewarm positive on the Thor Love and Thunder. And since thinking back about that, I'm like, that doesn't hold up in my mind very well. There's probably a few Marvel films like that which maybe haven't stood the test of time.
I think I was in a really good mood about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Yeah, you did like Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I must have aced a test or an exam that day or something. I must have been in a really good mood. Because everybody else around me thought I was stupid. So I need to, maybe revisit that film. So yeah, I think when you think about it, there's probably loads of things we changed, but hey, it's on the record now.
Yeah. I think as well, when we did the films that Streaming forgot, we did this with the most recent one over Christmas, where we both actually watched the films, whereas our first few episodes on that one, we gave each other a film, but we never watched each other's film. So I don't know. I
don't know why we did that. It made it a lot harder work for us, didn't it? Really, to kind of navigate conversationally around that. But
I think in my mind, I thought it would be funny to relay the plot to each other and just be like, "How?"
No, we both came up with the idea. It's not your fault.
I'm not saying that. I'm just I'm trying to think of my thought process during the time.
This is a classic Alex thing. To anybody listening, Alex always takes ownership and apologizes for things all the time that he should never apologize for.
I'm not apologizing.
Well, but you're fine. We're both complicit in our decisions, but yeah, like we've definitely ironed that kink out.
Yes. All right. Looking ahead now, what are some goals or aspirations you have for the film? Looking ahead, what are some goals? I need to start again. Looking ahead now, What are some goals or aspirations you have for the Film Angle podcast in the next 100 episodes? I think I kind of answered this just a minute ago, but I want to get more guests on. That's always been a thing for me. It'd be good to get more people on. I think there's a nervousness with trying to reach out to certain people, like either content creators or, I don't know, actors and directors that might do a small-time podcast. Yeah. I don't know.
I think that's it. I think that's the big milestone. And yeah, it's a nerve-wracking thing to overcome. Some people might not see that as a big obstacle, but for myself it is anyway. But I think once we take that leap, do it a couple of times, then I think that's a really good, strong development of the show. And just keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully we just iron out those kinks more and more as it goes on, and we get the show perfectly refined. But I think we're getting there.
Yeah, I would definitely be more confident to reach out to people now than I would have maybe on like episode 10, where things were still a bit rough.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It was always going to be.
Yeah, this kind of loops into that question. So if you could interview any filmmaker or actor for a special episode, who would it be and why?
Oh, living?
Yeah. I didn't really think of dead or living. Yeah, it could be dead, couldn't it? But for me, I guess you'd always want to interview your favorites, I guess. So like Martin Scorsese would be up there for me.
Yeah. That sounds terrible. You just kind of stole it. I love anybody who'd be just gentle with me and enthusiastic.
You don't want to interview Harrison Ford or anything then?
No, I don't want to interview Harrison Ford. Well, I wouldn't say no. I mean,
even Robert De Niro could be quite difficult as well, right?
Yeah, he's quite closed off, isn't he? He's quite unless he's talking about politics.
But I think if we were to interview somebody like that, like I'd want to make sure that we had like actually quite interesting questions about the filmmaking process and stuff like that, rather than like a junket type interview where you're just like, "What was your favorite day on set?"
Yeah, those interviews are really frustrating. It seemed to be the majority of them. I don't know. Like I hate to steal your choice, but I'd probably go similar too. Yeah, I think I'd bring a lot of people back from the dead who I just find interesting. I would love to talk to David Lynch. I'd feel nervous to talk to David Lynch.
He's not dead.
No, but I know. That's why I'm purposely choosing someone who's not dead.
Okay.
I'd love to I'd be very nervous to talk to him, but I'd be really interested because he's just got such a unique mind or unique way of looking at things. And I'm just like, if I could find a couple of questions I haven't been asked before, it'd be really cool to get some thoughts on what he thinks about life, death, and everything in between. So yeah, pretty cool.
Cool. All right. Next question. What film or films would you say changed the world of film, either positive or negative? I don't think this is so much about a film that's changed the world of film, but like a film. Oh, no. I think it is about that. A film that's changed the world of film, not a film that's changed you or your perspective on the film. So like films that have changed the course of history, I guess.
I think, you know what? This is a weird one. Because everybody can say, special effect, when special effects came along, like Jurassic Park, or like when James Cameron did like Avatar. I'm going to say an interesting thing that I always think about, because we watched this the other night in our home. Shrek. Shrek changed the way we perceive animation. I'm very I love animation, obviously, because we'll be talking about Ghibli later on, but it's one of my favorite genres of film, and how that kind of changed the way we viewed films in that genre for the years coming up until now. It turned what was quite an innocent traditional art form into fully transitioned it into the 3D sphere, where we can now have adult comedies kind of weaved throughout these children's stories, and they're a little bit more cynical, not as kind of hopeful maybe, or as lighthearted as they used to be. And although I love Shrek, it kind of started a good thing and a bad thing, for years to come, so that we're still making movies like Shrek happen. I know that's such a weird one for all cinema to come out with, but that's one that weighs heavy on my mind all the time. Like, do I like Shrek? Yes. Do I hate what happened because of it? Yeah, sort of too.
Yeah. I guess I could probably say the same about like the Avengers as like a modern day example of like I love the Avengers. I thought it was a great film. The spawning of multiple different universes and the current state of things as is. Yeah, it's for better or worse, I guess. Probably worse, but
He could have foreseen the size of that machine was going to become, by the end. But yeah, I enjoyed it. That first phase when I was a teenager, I had a lot of fun. So yeah, it just they just didn't end it. But we talked about Marvel.
No,
today.
yeah, we've talked about it a lot today. So I think, if anything, I think blockbuster films are seeing that you can't just do that successfully. Like did seem to be a one-off thing for Marvel. They seem to have got the formula right. So like, I do like the fact that like Twisters and Top Gun Maverick are kind of bringing this kind of idea of like a very visceral blockbuster back. Of you're just here for a good fun time in the cinema, and we're going to provide that to you. So hopefully that's something that changes going forward. Anyway, we'll go on to the next question. The film you wish you could see again for the first time. Most good films I'd love to watch again.
Yeah. I think perhaps like I've got two very different films in my head. Probably the first time I ever watched Alien, being a child, but I want to be a kid again watching it. Because I really do think, although I'm not endorsing kids to watch horror films at all, it's completely subjective and situational. But for me, horror, I love horror now still, but it worked so much better for me when I was a kid. When I was scared of things, and I was just looking at my bedroom door at night with insomnia because of what I just saw. Although that was horrible, it was also so exciting, and I'll never get that back. So watching like any sort of horror classic like Alien would be really cool for me.
Yeah. I'm trying to think in terms of, I can only like think of like recent films which like had a big impact on me anyway. So like watching Portrait of a Lady on Fire for the first time, I was like, when you're watching a film that is about to become your favorite, it's that feeling, and I'm always chasing that feeling. Had the similar thing with Challengers recently. I'd love to watch that again for the first time. I watched it for the second time last night. It's not the same, like you can't find the high that you got from watching it the first time. So anything like that, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Before Sunrise, like those kind of films where you're like, oh, it's very apparent within the film that you're watching your favorite film. I love that feeling. So yeah, always chasing that. Which recent M. Night Shyamalan, or is it M. Night Shyamalan?
Shyamalan?
Isn't it? I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right.
It's one of those names that has a lot of letters in it, but it actually sounds a lot simpler than it reads. Yeah. I think it's a Shyamalan.
Yeah. Anyway, which recent M. Night Shyamalan film has the worst title? Split, Old, or Trap? I think Trap is a great title for that film, and I'm very excited to go see it. So I'm going to say Trap is the best one. Yeah. And then Old is the worst one, I think. Split, it sounds cool, and I guess it makes sense for the film. And Old does make sense for the film, but it's so very like one note. I don't know. I think Old's the worst name.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I knew so much about James McAvoy and that performance in Split before I went into it. Like, I'm like, yes, that is so like overtly what the movie is about, split personalities. But Old is just like, it's such a strange choice that it just like really intrigued me. Like that title alone, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go see that movie. Yeah. And I loved it as well. But yeah, I'm excited for Trap. So I'll go Trap, Old, Split in that order.
I'll go Trap, Split, Old, as in best to worst.
Okay.
All right. If you could delete one film forever and have it never exist, what would it be and why?
Delete and never, ever exist.
Okay. I know what mine is, if you want me to give you a little bit of time while you think about it.
Yeah, go for it.
Mine is Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, because I think it has put a downbeat ending on that whole franchise, and I don't think it has truly recovered since. I know a lot of people say The Last Jedi. You're wrong. Last Jedi is incredible and set up for like a really good Episode 9, which obviously the Disney corporate overlords got scared about because there was such a backlash to it that they decided just to make this kind of half-baked Star Wars film that just doesn't work on any level. And it's a shame, because I think it's really struggling to come back from it. So I'd like to delete that film and be excited for Star Wars again.
Yeah, that's a good pick. That was one of my most heart-sinking cinema experiences I've ever had. Yeah, it was not good, not a good time. I would say for me, like I think of a lot of recent films. Like I'm thinking like, I mean, Pinocchio. What was that? I mean, like I feel like anything Zemeckis has made the last couple of times, I'm like, what? I can't believe they exist. That I can go on my TV right now, type in that film on Disney Plus and watch it. Like that movie, I did experience it with my eyes. But what was that? What was that? Like, I can't believe it got passed. You know. So things that come to my mind straight away, I'm going to say, yeah, that movie.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. What's your favorite food-based film and why?
Oh.
This is a tricky one because I feel like there's not like a million films about like food. Like obviously the one that always comes to my mind whenever you talk food-based films is Chef, just because it's good fun, you know, street food, gets all the right stuff going. But I'm trying to think of like other food-based films.
I was thinking like Ratatouille came to my mind straight away.
Ratatouille is good. Ratatouille is great. I'm going to look at some. All right, I'm finding it. All right, so here are the ones when I type in food-based films. You can let me know. Big Night. I don't know if you've seen that. I haven't seen that. There was that film that Luca Guadagnino did with Tilda Swinton. To Love, I think, was it?
Oh, yes, that's right.
That's quite food-orientated. That's very good. Chocolat.
My mum loves that film. Not a fan of it myself. I will admit it.
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory?
Yeah, I mean, the original, yes, the original. I mean, but like, I don't... Yeah, I mean, it's weird, isn't it? Like, what means... It has to be a lot about food, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm surprised. We might get something soon, I reckon. With the success of The Bear, you might find food makes its way onto the film medium soon.
Boiling Point was a big movie a couple of years ago.
Yeah. With,
I'm going to say Ratatouille, though. I'm pretty confident in
that. Yeah. I'd like Ratatouille. Yeah, I think that's a good one. All right, if you could play any role in any film, what would it be?
I would probably... I just want to be like John Wayne in any of those great westerns, like Rio Bravo or like The Searchers, or I just think he is so... I just love that era of cinema. I love westerns, and those movies just look so fun to be in, and they're so iconic. And I would just love to be able to walk into one of those sets and be any of those characters. So probably one of those.
That's true. Yeah, for me, it was more like living out my fantasies of like, would I be a Jedi? Would I be Luke? Would I be Rey?
So you mean being the character himself?
Yeah. I guess it would play a role in any film. I guess if I was Rey, I'd be able to kiss Adam Driver. What other films are there where somebody kisses Adam Driver?
Yeah,
I'll play that. I'll play those roles.
Yeah, you can do Annette, but then you'll end up being killed by him. Yeah, there's that nice. Yeah, there's that film. Oh, Ferrari. Yeah, he wasn't great in that one too.
Yeah, he doesn't even really drive the cars in Ferrari, does he? He gets that one scene at the start, so you wouldn't even be able to drive cool cars, really.
Have you watched that movie with... He's a very small part in it with Daniel Radcliffe.
Oh, yeah.
What is it called? It has like 2 different titles, but it's that rom-com that he's in, and he plays like the quirky comic relief friend.
Yeah.
I'd have a bit of Adam in that one.
Yeah.
This is like half the time off mic we just talk about Adam Driver. We really, this is we've probably devoted about 20 hours of our life talking about
it. Could have been our niche for the podcast. We could have been an Adam Driver centric podcast. Maybe that was it.
He's prolific enough.
Maybe we should do the Adam Driver angle. Who knows? Maybe it's in planning. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right. Who would you want to play you in a film about your life?
Jesus.
You want Jesus?
Yeah. I mean,
I think you would be better suited to play me.
I think you would. I don't like to self-evaluate, so that question just like absolutely gets under my skin straight away. I don't know if he was alive. If he was alive at my age, get Gene Wilder on here or something.
You're not picking Tom Cruise then, right?
I did not accept that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who I'd get. Donald Gleason might be good. I'm not Jim.
Okay.
I don't know. He's good.
You're not a redhead. But he can dye. I mean, he can always dye his hair.
I guess you'd have to, like, if you wanted them to play you younger, then I guess if it was going to be like a whole life kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah, difficult one that because
Kevin Spacey.
I don't know many young actors. I don't think that I can think about right now. But yeah,
all right.
Maybe get Adam Driver.
Yeah, you got a similar hair.
Yeah, you could just dye it slightly browner. All right, final question, and we get this one a lot actually. This one's been submitted to us many times, even before the Q&A section. But I do know specifically it might have been one of the Cineboys that asked us this question. And the question is, why do I get an erection whenever I listen to you both?
Yeah.
We're not making this up.
No. It has been something we'd had to address on the show for a long time now. It does happen. It is normal. And we finally want to address it today. And yeah.
You're not alone. You're not alone. Just know, anybody out there, the millions of people who submit that question, just know you are not alone in that way. And don't be embarrassed by it.
Yeah, I think your erection would subside if we went to video though. So yeah, we'll keep to this medium.
Yeah, we'll keep to podcasts. we've got a face for podcasting. Anyway, thank you to everyone who submitted questions for the Q&A. That was really kind of fun to do and reminisce a little bit on our 100th episode. So yeah, you'll never get another chance to do it unless we get to 200 episodes. So keep listening and motivating us to do it.
That sounded like a threat.
Yeah, I kind of like doing that though, man. We should do more Q&As. It was quite good fun. I really enjoyed it. It was good fun.
I forgot I was doing a Q&A today, so I've never seen these questions yet.
I had them written down for you for ages. This bloody notes has been ready for like
no.
3 weeks. Every time we come to record, something goes wrong. I've told you the questions are there ready prior to the episode.
Oh man, I could have got ChatGPT to write the answers for me.
Exactly.
every answer is Shawshank Redemption.
All right. Well, shall we go on to our final review of the episode?
We shall.
So, on to the next section of the show, where we catch up with our ongoing series, our Blindspots on the Sight and Sound Greatest Films of All Time list. Now, don't shy away from the topic here, just because it's a pretty downer topic. It is a very interesting film, and I think even if you haven't seen it, it's going to be an interesting discussion, or at least I hope, an interesting discussion that you and I are about to have, Chris. So we are making our way down the list. We're on number 27. We have been talking this one up for a little while. It's the longest film on the list and the 6th longest film ever made.
Wow. It's
the 9.5-hour documentary Shoah. So the documentary was 11 years in the making, as director Claude Lanzmann traveled and interviewed many people, both victims and perpetrators of the Holocaust. Released in 1985 and heralded as the greatest documentary ever made, the film is an astonishing account of the biggest and most horrific act of human evil known. Lanzmann allows for victims to speak their truth, and he also engages in some controversial practices in order to record accounts from Nazis themselves, but we're not going to shed a tear. They are Nazis. And they did think, or many of them thought, that they were being recorded audibly and anonymously, but in secret, they were being filmed and shown in full. So, Chris, is this the best documentary ever made?
Well, the argument's certainly there. Yeah, I was a bit daunted by the 9.5-hour runtime. I'm sure, like you said, sixth longest film of all time. Well, you know, the nature of the documentary and also the thorough work that Lanzmann has put in, and it's nearly 10 years in the making to make this project. So collection of interviews and on location shooting and just the thorough research. It is the ultimate deep dive into, the Jewish experience of the Holocaust. It's certainly in film form, and it will stay for me for years to come. This was one of the most incredible pieces of documentary I've ever seen. So yeah, that argument is warranted.
Yeah, it is. It is unlike anything I've ever seen, and it is almost like a historical witness account of what happened. It's there's no narration, there's no archival footage. It's just people talking about their experiences, and whether that be the victims or, like I said, the perpetrators, which is really interesting as well to get that kind of side of things.
Yeah,
But at the same time, like, it is cinematic in a way. Like,
it
it's
is.
not just like a point and shoot talking heads documentary. It's a historical account, but it's also like just an incredible achievement. Like, how do we even get into this? Like, it is a daunting task, 9 hours, but you can break it up. The BFI player breaks it up into two: the first era and the second era.
Yeah.
But it is meant to be one whole thing. But it is emotionally exhausting, and so I definitely didn't watch it.
No.
In one or two parts, multiple parts, but at the same time, I can't make an argument as to like where to even think about cutting, these people's stories. So yeah, 9 hours. There you go. But I also, maybe not in its 9-hour form at once, but I would argue that everybody should probably watch this film. It was probably like, as a film, just the most kind of upfront, heavy hitting subject you can be. And it was probably the most I've ever kind of like truly confronted the horrors of the Holocaust, because I think we learn about it in history.
Okay.
I lived in Germany for 8 years, so I saw a lot of the kind of monuments and stuff. I've been to a concentration camp. I believe you've been to Auschwitz, Kris.
Mm-hmm.
But like this, like truly, I think there was something about hearing it from the people involved, like truly confronted me with just how horrific this was. Like, I knew it was. I've always known it was, and there's different elements of kind of over the years just really kind of tackling that. But like mentally, it was just like, holy shit, how did we ever get here? Like, this is insane.
Yeah. And also, I mean, you're only 30 to 40 years removed from the actual events. So a lot of the people
in the documentary, not me.
In the documentary, of course, not now. But so, there was a real sort of essence of now or never with a documentary like that. If that documentary wasn't ever made, would we have had the opportunity to revisit the events in such detail and insight? This is a 9.5 hour documentary, but actually there's 100 hours of footage that isn't in this documentary that you can watch on the American Holocaust website, and where these interviews are obviously paraphrased or shortened or key staged throughout the film to suit the flow of the film at the end of the day, and to drive the message more thoroughly through. But you can actually go and watch all of these archived 3-hour interviews online. But the thing is, it's 9.5 hours, right? But like, if I had a whole day removed where someone was like, where we're going to watch this for the whole day, I could. It was that. But it was that.
I don't know. I was emotionally drained after every viewing.
Sure, but it's so emotionally, devastatingly engaging. It's you fall into these people's lives, these stories. Now, obviously, it's not very interesting for a podcast. What I would love to do right now with you, if it was just you and me, would be to go through all those stories and talk in detail about what we listen and what we witness through that. But I'm not going to talk about that for the sake of this review. You're right. I was worried going into it that maybe, like, we've seen documentaries so far, and some of them I've really engaged with, but from this period, but I was worried there was going to be vague and not an historical account, more of an emotionally poetic account, which it manages to end up being both.
Yeah, there's an element of like the length. You think, oh, is this going to be like an art film? Is this going to be the kind of film that they put on at a gallery and you go into a dark room and it doesn't matter where you jump in or where you come out, like you'll get an element of it, and it's just one of those continuously played things.
Like 10 minutes of silence and here and there. Yeah.
And it's not that at all.
No, it's incredibly, incredibly vivid. And because those recollections and accounts of the events are so well felt and they're so vividly portrayed through speech alone, and the visuals of we landsmen quite often will mirror what the interviewee or is expressing. If he's talking about how we were processed, how we landed at the camp, and how we were extracted from cattle trains and brought to this area to that area, well, the camera will simulate that by actually going to the now of
Yes,
where that location is.
never archival. Nothing. You don't see
No photographs.
any
No,
old
yeah,
footage. Nothing. You're seeing it as it was in the 80s when the film was shot. So like a present day.
yeah, which makes it feel very eerie and yeah, and it gives you a lot of space for contemplation. One of the real key decisions, probably really elongates the film. Actually, is that obviously Landsman is French and he speaks a little bit of German. He speaks other languages, but he is casting that out so wide in this film that he's talking to so many different types of people from different perspectives that quite often he has a translator with him. And whenever they are talking for the translator, their original, if they're talking Yiddish, or they're from Corfu and they're speaking their own language, the language will not be subtitled first. We have time to kind of listen to their voices, process what's being shown to us visually, and then hear the translation afterwards, which
Mm.
gives us so much more time to rest and actually pay respect to what that person is going through in the moment, and it gives it just that extra emotional heft.
Yeah, which is obviously not what is intended, because it's watching a French film about the Holocaust, speaking to Czechoslovakian, Polish mainly
Yeah.
people, uh, and then having it translated back in French, which is then subtitled. So like the idea wasn't there to begin with, but it does help. It takes you a minute to get used to it, but like you said, it allows you to not just read. It's like to physically watch somebody emotionally talk about something, and then you get the context afterwards. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's such a, it's like I can't even put into words how, like, what a special kind of document it is.
Yeah, you feel humbled to watch it. You feel, you know,
Like somebody's put in the
yeah,
time. You're like, thank God somebody put in the time to speak to these people. And for a lot of these people, you can tell they don't. This is not something they speak about a lot.
yeah, and he is quite, Landsman does probably push the interviewee occasionally almost too far, to the point
mm,
where you could see things getting a little bit, they could end up ending the whole thing any second. There's one woman where he's pushing her and she says, no, you have to do this. This is so important. This is so important, which he is right.
Yeah,
But
and it's also, it's not just about what happened, and like that's important as well, but it's like how this is affecting you now. I think of the guy in the barbershop is one of the kind of more powerful moments,
yeah,
struggling to kind of finish the story, but instead of like cutting and then coming back later, we just kind of linger on him as he kind of composes himself, ready to restart the story again. It's just, yeah, it's just insane. And some of the different details you find out, like thought that I knew a lot about World War II, but there were still like lots of details in this which I just like wasn't aware of just how horrific things
unfathomable.
are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like it's because like you said, you've been to a concentration camp, and yeah, like I said, I've been to Auschwitz, and you're there in that time and place, but it's so hard to fathom these details, these images, that we've been told, we've processed our whole lives learning about the Holocaust, but to have it here in film, I think it's aside from fictional narrative films, this is the most powerful portrayal of the facts of what happened to this massive religious group of people, and also it's also a timely warning to it's I think because it spends a lot of time with peripheral bystanders, a lot of Polish people or Czechoslovakian people who lived on the outskirts of these camps, on the peripheral towns.
Which is so
And
interesting. You don't get that in like just a bulk standard documentary about World War
I
II.
haven't seen it. I haven't seen
No.
it before. I've never
Just
seen
talk
that
to the people who
perspective.
were like in the peripherals of concentration camps. So interesting to get that perspective.
Yeah, and it's kind of revealing because you can see how some of those old anti-progressive views are still kind of present in those small rural towns, even if they're not outwardly expressing them. It still comes through in the interview and through what the visual of what we're seeing on screen. So it's not outwardly expressing a warning to us watching it, like this is still a problem, but it's there. It's really, really there. And I think also worth mentioning, yes, you said before, he interviews ex-members of the Nazi Party, with the false pretenses that he's interviewing them without videoing them at all. So we got this really it's like one of the very first ever little mini cams that he brings in, which is horrible, terrible aerial quality, and we have to,
but did you think, like, I'm sorry to like cut you off a little bit there, but like, did you think the way it looks and the way there was almost like a line covering the first Nazi that we talked to, like his eyes, and his eyes are like black, it was almost like something out of a horror film. And I feel like if that didn't inspire certain kind of horror camera work that we've seen since, then I'll be, what I'm trying to say is I'd be surprised if it didn't, because it was just, there was something so kind of like, I feel like I've seen this before, but it's like not a documentary, it's a horror film.
Yeah, are you talking about the same guy I'm thinking of, the man who was an Oberscharführer, who like a sort of higher member of the camp in Treblinka? And
at one point he sings a song about Treblinka, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's the song we used to teach the Jews and all that kind of stuff." Which again, it's just another part where you're just like, "Oh, dude, you can't read the room." He doesn't see, like, none of the Nazis he speaks to and he interviews, and they're the only ones that you can tell he starts to get a little bit frustrated with. They just don't know how to read the room, but it's almost like they don't fully
get it. Yeah, they still
they don't feel it, they don't regret it. There's no regret. Almost at one point a few of them say like, "Oh, we didn't fully know the extent," or like, "When we went to the concentration camps, we weren't like 100% sure what was going on, and like I didn't have a massive part in it." But like, and then they talk in detail about the horrible things that happened, and you're like, "Yeah, okay, sure, you didn't have a massive part in it."
And that man himself seems to almost like periodically, revere those moments. Like whenever he sings at the Treblinka song, there's gusto to that performance. And you're right, having that sort of distorted look in his face, you're trying to like find the humanity in this person, and it's quite difficult. There's also one of the guys who managed the train lines from Berlin that transported people to the concentration camps.
This is the guy on the poster, right?
Sorry, I'm talking about from the one of the members of the Nazi Party who worked for the train line.
Yeah.
He managed the transportation system,
yeah.
but claims that he never knew what was the contents of those cattle trains, or what they were going to, or where they were coming from, which seems absolutely really hard to believe. So there is this sort of like, oh, absolutely, people, they keep telling us that like, oh, this is horrid and terrible, but you never really believe them. But maybe that is a mechanic of defending themselves from the devastation of their own misdeeds. That's probably me being generous to people who used to responsible for killing millions of people. But overall, this is like, you find such humanity, mostly just completely from these from the Jewish people recollecting their monstrosities, and the hope that comes, like these people who've gone through such horrendous things, you can see that they've ended up being successful people who have families who managed to process things and move forward. And I cannot, I absolutely astounds me. That's what kind of come away of this film, thinking that it's so inspiring to see these people come out the other side of something. You can't even compare it to anything else. I can't even comment on that.
It's as much as it's a really engaging film, it's also a very difficult film to watch.
And it gets more difficult as it goes as well. You know, it doesn't like give you let's get the it's sensationalized this from the beginning. It's all devastating. But I mean, it just you think you don't get let off the hook anytime soon watching this
No.
film.
And there's there are talking head moments which are obviously, the most interesting, getting kind of like first hand accounts, but there's also moments where we just I believe it's the landsman who's reading the documents about how to like modify vans from a factory. So like the factory's like instruction manuals on how to modify vans for killing Jews, but the way they talk about like, oh, the load will move to
Yeah.
the back because of fear and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like
Yes.
the
Yeah.
normalization and the dehumanization of what these camps were doing is just shit, man. Like, but it's interesting because like I knew like within 5 minutes, I think, of watching this film that this was going to be something that was incredible.
Yeah, I would and go back to that. I urge anybody to watch it. This isn't inaccessible whatsoever. It does require your respect, obviously, going into something like this. But it is necessary viewing because it's not because just by proxy it's subject matter, or I'm saying that because it's about the Holocaust. No, because it is such an insightful, all encompassing documentary that will give you a full appreciation for one of the most horrific events in human history. So, that is it's worth your 9.5 hours for what everybody else in this film had to deal with. I think you can, it's worth sparing.
Yeah, it's just so interesting as well because I think unlike other films that might literally show you what the people are talking about, this one you kind of have to piece it together in your mind. So it's quite a unique experience for a film. You are listening, you are watching, but you're also conjuring up images in your mind. And
Well, you're listening to stories, aren't you? You're listening to real stories, and what you usually can conjure in your own mind as a realistic reflection of what is being told to you is far more vivid than a photograph that was taken that doesn't necessarily explicitly show what's happening, but plants you in that image. So I think it's better to your mind will recollect it, and I find it more memorable. It stayed with me more. It's like reading a book. When you read a book and just like the imagery that you've made of whether it's a world you're kind of trying to come up with in a fantasy book or whether it's just a factual book. You just whatever you imagine. Well, it's so much more lasting than an image usually for me. But it's devastating. Definitely, yeah, definitely worth watching, and like it, 100% is worthy to be in this list. I'm struggling to think of now a documentary that's ever affected me as much.
No, like I definitely subscribe to the best documentary ever made, kind of thing that it has. But like, is even a documentary? It just feels like a historical artifact, just out there. It's mad. It is mad.
And obviously, because I think Auschwitz, deservedly, obviously, it was the biggest, piece of the machine. But it gives a lot of time to these other camps, these other death camps like Treblinka, like Chelmo, and all these other places that I had little knowledge about in comparison. So it was, it was a great opportunity to be educated by that too, and just it gives you more of that scope. We're not just like every other documentary kind of is like Auschwitz is it, it's so much more than that. There were hundreds of these places, and it just gives you an idea of that sort of massive scope of this, how institutionalized this was done. It was just it was another day of the office. It was part of how the country of Germany ran at the time. It's crazy.
It is mad. And you can't fully comprehend just how bad things were and how low humanity got during that period of time. Really confronting. Yeah, and I'm surprised Germany have kind of been able to come back from that. As somebody who lived over there, they don't shy away from the fact that it happened, but they also don't shy away from the fact that it was pure evil. So that is interesting for a country really to kind of grapple with that in a unique way. And having lived over there, I do think Germany is a brilliant country. But yeah, obviously at that period of time, not so
Yeah.
much.
Was it ever like when you were in school over there, was it like ever a syllabus sort of thing, or was it just sort of, not talked about, or?
Oh no, very much talked about, and like I said, that Germany itself did not shy away from it. There's lots
That's
of
good.
museums, memorials, all kinds of stuff. They don't shy away from it at all, but I think they truly know that like you can't just forget something like that, and you have to learn from it. But they would arrest you if you did a Nazi salute in the streets or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
But fair enough.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I know. It was always going to be a heavy conversation. To be honest, it could be heavier, but I'm actually trying to like not go down that route too much because it's that's not the kind of show this is. But it is 100%, guys. If you're listening, just worth watching. I mean, put it top of
It's
your
an
list.
incredible film.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Even if you can watch it episodically, like I did. I mean, there's a couple periods where I watched it like for 2 to 3 hour stints because I was just so engaged, and I only put it down because I had to be somewhere, or I had to go to bed or something like that because it was a work night. But you will be lost in this film. It is one of a kind. So yeah, please go out your way.
Yeah, and it should be shown. I think everyone should see it. I think it should be taught in schools because I think there's a certain age where I think you could watch this and it not be too.
I think they would. I think it's just
understand it, but not be traumatized.
It?
Like you couldn't show it in primary schools or something like that.
No, but it must be just a lack of public awareness because I think my teachers, who I recollect from my history classes in school, they would have definitely shown this if they'd known about it.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? I hadn't really heard about it until obviously getting into the list and finding out more. So
every classroom in the country has Schindler's List and The Pianist, and in the back corner of the shelf, but they don't have Shoah.
I know. I know we're going on about the film because it is great, and obviously it's a long episode already. But that was another thing I wanted to chat to you about was World War II films now. How I can't comprehend, like, it was so, the documentary goes into so much like detail on how purely horrible and pure evil it is that like it's difficult for me now to think, oh, I'm gonna check on Schindler's List or Inglourious Bastards and be like, wow, World War II. I don't know.
Well, maybe not Schindler's List, but Inglourious Bastards definitely. But like, I think if you're thinking about movies from the time, from the war effort, from the 40s and 39, and movies that came out that were meant to boost public spirits, I don't necessarily demonize those sort of films because, I mean, up until 1944, 45, the Allies weren't aware that this stuff was even happening. Or so history teaches us to believe.
Well, we have an interview with one of the guys who specifically was there to
bring out information about the ghettos.
Yeah. And the guy who lives in New York, who was the professor who went into who was like snuck into the concentration camps to find evidence of what was going on as well, to bring it back to to the States itself.
It was and then you had the guy escaped Auschwitz. Incredible. He saved potentially 100,000 Hungarian Jewish lives. It's crazy, and I like that. And this movie also gives time to the uprisings, to the people who were defiant as much as they could be within their limitations. And they really, the movie stresses, because a lot of people who are very, I think, ignorant about the topic will often stress like, where was the resilience of the Jewish people? And it's like to understand there was pockets of it, but to understand the lack of power that these people had and how this isn't like an overnight thing. This is years and years and years and years of this being, sort of this process coming into Nazi Germany. You need to see a movie like this to kind of understand that the limits of the Jewish people and their power at the time. Of course, people were resistant, but what can you do whenever you've got no possessions, you haven't been fed in 2 weeks, and your willingness to uprise and your lack of mobility is an issue. So yeah, but there were some good moments of heroism nestled between this, and yeah, it's all encompassing. It's it touches on everything.
Yeah. Go out and watch it. It's on the BFI player.
Sorry, I didn't ask you. What did you think about the whole war movie thing? Like, do you?
I'm probably just going to be a while until I can sit down and watch one of them, especially one of the older ones, which were a bit more like, righty ho, chap, let's go off and march with fire and go out to fight the Nazis. Not sure I might be able to watch one of those for a little moment.
It's such a massive war that with micro wars within wars, it's a different fight, isn't it? It's hard. It is hard. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't got the final opinion on that, Alex. But I get why you might need a gap before you can enjoy a Kelly's Heroes again.
Yeah.
Dunkirk.
Well. Yeah,
guys. I hope you're not bummed. I hope you're not bummed out.
No, we didn't want to bum anyone out. If anything, we're telling you to watch a 5-star masterpiece.
Yes, this is a 5-star film.
It's just a heavy hitting topic. And one that we're both very interested in.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Thank you guys for bearing with us during our little hiatus and being back with us now for our 100th episode. It has been 100 great episodes, I think, Kris.
Oh, thanks, Alex.
Happy to come this far and keep going further, onwards and upwards and all that. Hope we didn't bum you out at the end with Shoah, but it is truly incredible. Please go watch it. We are truly saying go see that film.
Definitely.
But we will be back next week. We're going to figure out what we're going to talk about. There are definitely things we're going to talk about. Don't worry. So join us then. But that has been the episode for this week. If you've enjoyed it, make sure to leave us a 5-star rating or review. We do really appreciate it. If you'd like to keep up to date with us, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Film Angle.
We also have a Film Angle playlist. If you want to listen to what we've been listening to, you can find that in the show notes. Be sure to catch us next week for more cinematic discussions. Well, goodbye.
Goodbye, and happy 100.
Happy 100, Alex. See ya.